Sometimes sunlight is necessary in politics. Today on FIT TV, we have the Shining Light candidate, Mrs. Jennifer Thompson, running for the Huntington Town Council. In light of the recent financial issues the town has had, maybe some fresh blood will clear the way for effective government at the local level. Welcome, Jennifer Thompson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Why did you choose politics now? What's the reason why you want to get into it?
Well, it's interesting that I will bring a fresh set of eyes to Huntington Town Council, but I am not a stranger to being involved in our community. I currently serve on the Northport East Northport School Board. I have since 2010, and so I just feel like the work that I've done there has been very successful, very rewarding, and a lot of the principles in having transparency, looking at things in a different perspective, finding innovative ways to keep our taxes low in our school district.
Good
I would
idea.
like to bring those to the greater good of the Huntington Township.
Yeah. What are some of the responsibilities you think the Huntington Town Council will ask of you?
Well, I think first and foremost that we need to bring the town council needs to bring transparency and accountability to the taxpayers as far as the contracts, how money is being spent, just the way that the government is working in bringing sunlight into all of these places that need to really have an open dialogue for the community to know how our money is being spent, whether it's being spent effectively, whether our contracts are as competitive as they can be, making sure that really every citizen gets the best value for their tax money.
Yeah, thank you. That's what we want. I'm a Huntington resident. We want quality in the decisions that you make.
Yes.
It does seem to be that would be something we would really need, because I feel in the dark. And if I can use that example I spoke to you about before the program started about the parking meters, all of a sudden it was $1 parking meter. And the retail establishments already have a difficult time keeping cars nearby so that they can stop off, pick something up, and move on. If you go to pick up the newspaper and it takes 2 minutes, you're able to have a $50 ticket or something, whatever the dollar amount was. So it was unreasonable for them to do that without discussing that. And sure enough, something did happen. We had the lowered meters, so I guess we were screaming enough and they finally listened. But how did it get, I mean, you don't have the answer to this, of course, but we would want, when the future occurs, that you're able to pass this along to Junkie Public, the taxpayer, and let them help you make the decision, right?
Well, and I don't think that the town should look to just increase taxes, increase everything to all of the citizens of the township if there's a deficit. They need to look at their spending first and not just simply say, well, you know what, we'll just increase parking, we'll increase this, we'll pay higher everything else, so we'll put it on the backs of the community and of the residents of the community. That would be first and foremost. But secondly, if a change like that is going to occur, it should be brought out in public for discussion and then voted on afterwards, not just simply imposed.
Voters want to know what might there be done that can be done soon. You don't know the answers to these things. You're not in office. You have to have them managed. But there's a lot of pressure on Junkie Public and the taxation issue and on the school issue and on things like Common Core. That all these things are a part of our living day. We want to have input in some of these things. How do you think you can provide that if you get to win your councilship?
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest issues with the Common Core and with mandates from the state is that they basically say, you're going to do this. They don't necessarily fund them. So we as taxpayers, we don't have choices in the way that our schools are governed or the programs are governed. And they're completely imposed, and there's no financing available from the state to manage those things. So unfunded mandates basically is, I think is out of control. I think as residents, we make up our communities, whether it's through the school boards in a smaller level, whether it's our town boards on a larger level. We should be the voice to say what's best for us. Somebody in Albany or somebody far away making decisions about how we live, how we spend our money, what our classrooms look like per se, that should not be the role of the larger government. That should really be the role of the local citizenship of the community.
Having that experience as a town board member in Northport, you said it was at East Northport?
Northport East Northport.
Yeah.
It's one school district.
You have to look at what's up and coming, so you may get to manage and hear what you're for and against, and the board votes on it, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Does anything ever come to be that you really want something to happen? You think it's a great idea and you can't sell other board members on it, for instance?
Absolutely. I mean, that often happens where, perhaps a grouping of the board may say, gosh, we really think this is going to be most effective for our schools, and the board cannot find consensus on it. There have been times where people have, other board members have wanted to do stuff, and I've been, I don't necessarily think that's the most effective way to handle it. But I think at the end of the day, whether the vote goes, one way or the other, it's important that, one, the community hears the discussion, that they have an opportunity to weigh in, that those of us who've been put in a position by, election, have been put in a position to make those decisions, really seek the information of our community. What do they want, and how do they want to do it? And I think when we know that our community is behind something, then to go to them and say, okay, and this is what how it's going to change our budget, that's a much more reasonable way to handle a budget process than to simply make a decision and impose it. Sure. And say, and now you're going to pay for it. So.
How would you get the people to chime in with you to be a part of that decision? Would you reach out by advertisement or phone calls, door to door? How would you go get that information from the public?
I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. There are so many community groups in which you can engage and say, next time you gather, let's have a discussion. Certainly you can invite groups that something would specifically, be meaningful to them. Not wanting to use too much of my school board experience, but that's, a big role that I play in my community. We often go to PTA meetings just to hear what's going on in the individual schools, because, when you have a district with 10 schools, or 9 schools, what may be pertinent to one school may not be to another, but we need to navigate all of the different voices and all of the different stakeholders to make sure that across an entire district we have kind of an even representation. I think that when you look at town council, it's very similar in the sense that you've got different communities that make up one township. What may be relevant to citizens of Dix Hills may be irrelevant to citizens of Huntington Station, and vice versa. So you need to make sure that you're engaged with all of the different groupings, all of the different constituents, and what is important to them, what is their need in their community at this time.
Maybe a way to connect with some of your constituents would be through emails and through email surveys and things that are like that.
Right.
Or websites and things like that.
Yes.
I always thought, how come I'm not hearing from the council now in terms of things that they plan? There's a recent thing going on in Huntington Village, or next to Huntington Village, is an old-timers community, and they keep saying there's plenty of parking, there's parking here and there's parking there, but they're not talking about the transfer of vehicles that are in motion that don't have a part of that. I can't see this one lane carrying all that traffic, and no one's really discussed that. So wouldn't an email survey be a good idea to say, do you think traffic right? I mean, what else?
Absolutely. I think I think that there's so many ways now to effectively reach your community. I think that we're transitioning from more of a paper mailer kind of a system to a system in which we can get instant feedback from our community using things like SurveyMonkey, using email blasts, and community members can engage in that way. Also, there's opportunities for public forums online. Facebook, you could have a community-based Facebook page in which you throw out some ideas like tell me what is what you're looking forward to most this summer in your community, so you can hear from residents what thrills them about where they live. I mean, we have a lot of great things in our area, but sharing that communication. What are your concerns? How do you feel about the crime in your area? Do you feel like we're getting a fair representation from our police force? That type of a thing.
When you win your election, would you please put that in place? Because that's honestly,
well,
I think that's a serious.
Actually, that's a big, for me, that's a big part of it. I want my kid. I want to know that I'm safe in my community. I want to be able to know that when I'm home, I can let my hair down and not have to walk looking over my shoulder, worry about. And I want my kids to be able to do that. I want all kids to be able to do that. So we need to make sure that we create a climate in which safety is important and it's addressed and it's something that we're talking about, not looking the other way.
In creating a climate, there's creating a climate for the board, and I always felt that maybe non-lawyers would pose a better opportunity for things that are happening in the community to be worked on from more business perspectives rather than more legal perspectives. This is a personal view of mine, but it goes around in terms of like what and connects to term limits and things that are like that. Can you respond to any of that?
Well, I'm fully for term limits. I think that, you know, when you serve in a position and you are looking to keep your job, you have a tendency, I think there can be a tendency in government to just kind of be neutral about things, to kick the can, so to speak,
Yes.
down the road. And when you recognize that you are in office for a finite amount of time, you are going to be focused on getting in, getting the job done, and knowing that another generation of community members should come in and be engaged in serving our community. And so I look at this as an opportunity to serve my country, serve my community. It shouldn't be a lifelong career. It should be an opportunity for me to do something at this time to make the most of my time, be as effective as I can, and then move on.
Yeah, and it disturbs me to see some of the people that have been in office for a long time take advantage of us, because we know that they are. I mean, people who follow it even a little bit can see that they're taking advantage of us. That's disturbing to me.
And some of it, certainly that can be the case, taking advantage, but some of it I just liken to, kind of things that happen because we're human. I always liken it to the idea that, when you do construction, I have actually a piece of painter's tape in my house because we put up some crown molding. And at the time that we put up the crown molding, there was one little area that we didn't quite have the varnish right on. And so we left that piece of painter's tape knowing that we should go back and, varnish that one spot. And it bothered me the first, 3 months that it went to, first 2 weeks, then the first 3 weeks. Well, 6 years later, the painter tape's still there, but I hardly notice it. And I think that kind of diminishing eye, can happen to all of us in our homes, in our life, but certainly in government. And when you're dealing with other people's money, you shouldn't have that kind of diminished perspective.
Right.
I may choose to live like that in my own home, but as a public servant, we should be vigilant in how we're looking at things.
From your experience as a Board of Education member, can you comment on a few things that you have to deal with, like Common Core or extended time in classes? There seems to be a lot of debate as to whether more time in school is necessary, or more hours per day, or more days per week, Saturdays. There's all kinds of discussion about that. Do you have any? Right.
Well, certainly we want to see our kids do well. We want to see kids in America do well. We want to see our kids locally do well in competition and state, testings and these different things. But I have been against the way that the state has imposed the Common Core and the assessments. I think our kids are being tested as though they're guinea pigs, and I believe that a lot of what was mandated by the state was unfunded, was really untested, and then just kind of shoved down our throat. So I've come out very strongly against the way that I feel like the state managed kind of the transition. I'm fully supportive of us having rigor in our classrooms, of us being competitive, as our students being competitive. We spend a lot of money as community members on educating our kids, and the results should be there. So we deserve that. Our kids deserve that. The taxpayers deserve it.
We're not getting the bang for the buck.
But we're not getting our bang for the buck, and I think that we've got people making decisions that aren't really thinking through it, and who's paying the price? We are, because this testing that we've been subjected to is highly expensive, very expensive. The training that the teachers have had to go through in order to adjust to the Common Core has been very expensive, and really none of us that were in the field making decisions were part of the conversation.
What is their primary concern, the teacher's primary concern about the process of either learning Common Core or dealing with it?
Well, I think the primary concern, quite honestly, was this last year, and there's been a moratorium on it, so it was placed on hold for a year while the state goes back and readjusts how they're going to do it. But really, at the end of the day, teachers were being told that their efficacy was going to be based on 50% of the test scores. So that puts a lot of pressure on them.
As a job, for their job.
Right, for them to teach, for a child to pass the test, and that takes away true, authentic classroom learning.
It's just a no-brainer. I don't know.
Right.
I don't understand these things.
Yes.
I don't know how they got to be so bad. The other issue I have with the education is the state mandated programs, mandated tax dollars going into programs. State mandates, I guess you call it.
Unfunded mandates. It's when the state says this is what you're going to teach, or the federal government says this is what you have to do. Every like on Long Island, I know that the districts really don't qualify for what is race to the top. A lot of the money that a district gets toward being part of the program is so minimal compared to how much it costs to implement the program. So for instance, it may cost $80,000 to implement a program, and you only get, over the course of 5 years, $35,000 or $39,000 to fund the program. So really you're being told, again, it's an unfunded mandate. You're being told you have to do this. The Race to the Top money is supposed to support it, but it doesn't pace it dollar for dollar. It's, maybe a third of the way. Or
Can we challenge that at any time?
Absolutely.
I mean, we can challenge, you can challenge.
Yes.
How would be the most effective way to challenge the mandates? That's been going on for a long time.
Yes. Well, I will say when Common Core first came out 4 years ago, it felt very much like, well, it was decided and none of us had a voice in it. And yet I saw
Snuck up on us, didn't it?
Yeah, it kind of. Well, it kind of was slammed at us. It was kind of like Hurricane Sandy. It just kind of hit the shores, and we were all told that we've got to deal with it. But I will say I was so impressed because our communities, our parents, really stood up and said, we do not want this for our kids. And the state has made some adjustments. And like I said, there's been a moratorium now for a year as to try and figure out how to get through this. So I really do think that, when you think you don't have a voice, you can. When people band together and rise up, they can make a difference. And so, yes, I think that the way you do it is you talk to your...
Scream a little bit.
Yes.
Make phone
Make
calls,
that
emails and stuff like
squeaky wheel.
Squeaky wheel. There's also this, what's the Suffolk County Tax Bill A03911 regarding the schedule for collection of school taxes within the county. What was that about?
So basically in Suffolk County, there are, actually throughout the state, there are just pockets of places. Suffolk County is one of them, part of Nassau County is one of them, and there are some places up in the larger part of New York State in which the tax schedule is not aligned with the way that the districts have to pay their employees. So what ends up happening is a district runs out of funds, essentially forcing them to borrow money. So they borrow money, and it's called a TANS, a tax anticipation note. They borrow money.
Anticipation, there's a good...
Yes. We borrow money as a district to cover the costs of running a district until the revenue from the taxes come back to the district. And some places, most places, I would say probably 90% of the state, the tax schedule and the payment schedule for the districts are aligned. So the tax money is being collected and it's being dispersed regularly so that a district would never have to borrow money. But in Suffolk County, I don't know how this, it seems to me whoever's making money on the interest has an interest in this, this perpetuation of this.
Wouldn't that be the county? That's what it looks like.
So basically, right now tax rates are very low. So I think like in a district such as ours, the tax anticipation interest, the interest on the note may be about $35,000, but that's still $35,000 that you're paying on interest for money that should be there, if the schedule was aligned properly.
And that's just a scheduling issue?
It's
that's all it
just
is?
a scheduling. So like I think locally in Huntington, we pay taxes in January and May, something like that.
May and I forgot what it is, yeah.
Yes, but however that alignment is, a district usually runs out of money right about our district, local districts will run out of, their revenue right about the end of the summer. So they have to borrow to get them through that fall, winter to handle payroll until the revenue from taxes come in.
Jesus.
And it's every year, every year you build into a budget a certain amount of money, knowing that you're paying interest on money that you have to borrow.
Do you have any hope that the taxation level for the John Q. Public for their residences is going to go down?
Do I have any hope for that?
I mean, realistically.
Realistically, I think I'm going to fight for that. Do I think that we can use what we have more effectively? I think when people hear tax reduction, they feel like there's going to be a loss. And what I've tried to communicate to people is it's not about losing services. It's
better
not
management.
it's about better management. It's about better contracts, being competitive, using the money more responsively and more responsibly, and not necessarily losing services. We none of us want to lose anything. We want to take our money, manage it well, and have it work for us better. And that's what I hope to do.
What about civic education? Don't you think that's a good idea? Teaching kids and keeping it in the mind of how government works and what what it's like to vote and
Absolutely.
because there's a big missing element.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we need kids to get engaged so that 30
right.
years from now they can run our country.
Yeah.
When we're all too tired and old to do it.
They don't know the
absolutely.
process at all. Everything I've seen doesn't show that they know anything like that. They don't know civic education. Okay, last comment or two here. Is there anything that you can think of that you would do differently as Huntington Town Council? You know, is there anything that comes to mind that you might consider doing that maybe no one's done before?
Well, I really do think that going back, looking at contracts that we have, especially the ones that are long-standing, you know, it's easy to hit the go button, just keep going. Oh, we're on this path, we keep going down this path. I think, you know, competition breeds a healthy economy. And when we have, you know, competition in our contracts, in the services that the community is being provided, making sure that services that we are providing are relevant to our tax base.
That's
you
a
know,
biggie.
making sure that what, you know, we might say this is a great program, but if nobody is invested in it and nobody's engaged with it, maybe we need to relook at that. How can we better effectively reach the community and serve them in a way that, in a manner that they need, you know, be responsive.
So you're up for the challenges of running for office. Do you have any last comment?
I'm up for the challenge.
All
I'm
right.
so grateful for the opportunity, and I look forward to working my tail off and winning my seat.
Thank you, Jennifer Thompson. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.
Properly inflating my tires burns less fuel and saves me money on gas. Yeah, I'm saving Mother Nature from pollution, but more importantly, she saved me $11. Ow!
Environmental defense. Get green.
By keeping my car regularly tuned, I save money on gas and repairs. That also means cleaner air. You know, feels good to help save the cash, planet.
Environmental defense. Get green. For more tips, go to getgreen.com.
Sweetheart, smoke outside now. You promise.
Okay, hon.
Sweetheart, smoke outside now. You promise.
What kind of man are you?
I'm a father.
Look here, my father was a father, and he smoked his brains out in the house.
Watch as he blows those smoke rings on my little red face.
You probably have asthma.
Asthma? Schmasma. I'm telling you, nothing's gonna happen to your kids.
I swear.
Don't swear when you're lying. You know very well that thousands of kids get bronchitis, ear infections, and even pneumonia from their parents' cigarette smoke. And didn't you promise your little angels you'd smoke outside?
Hey, Daddy.
Those little devils are just so sweet.
Do the right thing.
Please, smoke outside.
Until you can stop, go out for your kids.
Take the pledge. Call 1-800-513-1157.